It is raining for the last 36 hours, constantly, non-stop. We had 25 millimeters yesterday and today already over 20 millimeters. But, I mean, what do you expect from sunny, hot Australia, right? Can you hear the rain? It's getting stronger again. We still got 1.2 kilowatts and 12 amps into the battery. Thanks to the west roof upgrade, we are still making power in these conditions. But instead of giving you an update about the weather forecast, let's talk about the Seplos MASON system. So, welcome back to the off-grid garage here in San. So I thought I have built now two Seplos MASON systems here, battery systems. I thought it is time to give you a bit of feedback, of a summary, kind of a final verdict. Well, actually not sure if it is final, because I'm still working on these batteries here. And I thought it is really time now to talk about these batteries here and see what is really good, what is not so good, and what could they do better. Look at this, 1700 watts. And 1000 is coming from our west roof. So the first point says here, great quality of case and material. And this is really true for the Seplos MASON system. The quality of these cases here is really... These batteries are in a massive steel container with profiles welded into the case to give these batteries maximum support. And these cases, they are not twisting, they are not bending, nothing. They will just be... This is a solid battery block. Sometimes the welding is a bit rough, but this is all inside of the box. From the outside it is perfect. It is well manufactured and it looks really professional. So the next very positive point is about the neat and organized setup of this whole system. We've got our batteries in 2 rows here, 8 batteries each, have these PCB with the balance cables on top of it, and it all looks very nice, organized, clean installation. We've got the BMS here behind the front panel, connected with this pre-configured flat bus bars to our battery. And the balance cables are clean and tight, connecting from our BMS to our PCBs here and then to the batteries. And even here in the 280 ampere hour do-it-yourself kit, look how clean this looks like, right? This is a full do-it-yourself battery. It looks just so clean and well designed. And the third very positive point is all the parts are included in these kits. And regardless if you order the 6.9 version, including the battery cells, or you're doing the full do-it-yourself kit here and use your own batteries, all the parts like bus bars, nuts, bolts, screws, the BMS, balance cable connections, the handles, the locks to secure more batteries on top of each other, the display and the sticker, terminals, everything is included. There's nothing missing. So you can really build up this battery within 2.5 hours just from scratch. Because you don't need to order any parts, you don't need to think about the design, everything is pre-configured, you just need to put everything together. So these Seplos MASON batteries here are ideal for beginners who want to build their own battery. So this is a really fantastic system for that. And I really like that all holes in these cases are threaded. So you only get your screws and bolts and you don't need any nuts or washers and spring washers, nothing like this. You've got a thread in every hole basically, which makes it so easy to put everything together. And it is a lot quicker, of course, too. Yeah, as you know from our battery 2.0 here, basically all my connections here, everything is threaded. Okay, let's talk about customer service. Well, I'm interacting with Seplos all the time, and they gave me They gave me actually access to one of their technicians, but I think this is just a thing because I'm doing these videos here and I'm showing them. Remember when we built this battery here and 2 of the temperature sensors were faulty? Well, they couldn't get them separately, so they sent me the whole PCB. And I think this is what is in this box here. Oh wow. And it took them only a week, 1.5 weeks to send this one over. But I have also read your comments under my videos that you had a bit of a... Oh shit, holy crap. It looks like it's a whole set of 4 of these PCBs. I have also read your comments under my videos where you said, well, Seplos is not responding when I asked them something. I filled out the chat form on Alibaba and they haven't responded. The customer service and response time is not as good. Oh wow. And they apologized already for these ones here because these are the wrong ones. These are actually the long ones for the 280 ampere hour kit, not for this one. But they are using the same temperature sensors, so I just need to desolder these ones here and put them on the 6.9 system, and then everything should work. Lots of spares. So from this perspective, I cannot complain at all. They were really quick sending these ones out here when I said I've got 2 faulty sensors. But I'm not sure about the customer service, if this is good or bad. I have read mixed comments about that. And by the way, we are charging with 2.5 kilowatts. Almost. I think customer service is always something which can be improved. So response times, technical support and shipping of spare parts, certainly something which is very important for us customers. And what else is on my list here? Ah yeah, documentation and manuals. Well, at the beginning I was a bit concerned about having only 1 page of installation guide available to build this whole battery here. But I quickly realized that this is actually brilliant, because it states all the material and tools you need to complete this step. And there are only 4 steps on this installation guide, so it really doesn't take long to build this battery. And you probably also remember when I complained at the beginning about the sheer amount of settings in the BMS, right? Well, the first few minutes looking at these are really overwhelming. But I had another look at their Google Drive, where they have all the files and documentation available for download. And under step 4, you will find the documentation and manuals for all their BMSs, from 50 amp up to 200 amps. And in this documentation, in this manual for your specific BMS, there's also a huge section. All these parameters for this BMS are explained in the manual. And because this is a translation from Chinese into English, some of them don't make 100% sense, but you still get a good idea what these parameters are for. And they also have sent me a document which explains all these switch functions. You know, in one of the last videos I made a bit of fun about these switch functions because some of them are really funny named, but I have now the documentation for it which explains all of them. So if you have any questions about their systems, have a look on this Google Drive there. It is full of good documentation, manuals, procedures, diagrams, everything is in there. I spent probably half an hour to go through all the documents and pretty much everything is there. It also explains how to connect these batteries to RS485 or even CAN, what the pin out is for their connections here. This is all explained and available. So a big thumbs up for the documentation. I mean, alone the BMS manual is over 40 pages long. And we know from other BMSs we usually don't get a manual at all. That's why I have to make all these videos and explain all these settings and functions and go through all the numbers and explain everything in detail. And yeah, and I have now read the instructions and manual for the BMS here, for the Seplos BMS. At the beginning I had the BMS actually on the negative side of things because I wasn't really happy about this BMS. But reading the manual and understanding what all these settings do and what the BMS actually can do, it seems to be a masterpiece of engineering. It has quite a few functions which other BMSs don't have, and certainly a big plus is that we can upgrade this BMS with firmware updates. Yeah, so no other BMS so far has got this feature. For example, we know this from the NEEY Active Balancer and the JK BMSs. Whenever something changes, you need to buy a new version, a new hardware version. So instead of upgrading just the firmware on these devices, you always have to spend more money. And from a pure hardware perspective, these devices don't really change. It is just the software which runs on these devices which is changing. So the ability to upgrade the firmware is certainly a big plus for the Seplos BMSs. Okay, so before we come to the negative points, I want to point out two things which I have under consideration, so they are neither positive nor negative. But I want to mention them here because these are also important features of these batteries. Well, once you have built your Seplos MASON battery, the weight is insane. I can just move the 135 ampere hour version here around by myself, but this battery alone has close to 50 kilograms. And we don't really want to talk about the 280 ampere hour version. This one 105 kilograms. So super heavy. You would need 4 people here to lift this battery into a shelf or into a server rack or whatever you want to put this battery here. So consideration here is, where do you start building this battery? Do you have to move it afterwards, or will it stay in this position, in this location where you actually build it? Let's have another look under the hood here. The next consideration I'm not so sure about is the heat inside this box generated by the battery cells under high load, high C rating in summertime. How do you dissipate the heat in these boxes here? Especially when you think about that all these battery cells have like this, they have this EVA tape in front of the back. So, and this acts like an isolator as well, you know, that's a rubber, it's a layer of rubber in between the battery cells, which isolates them from a thermal perspective as well. And I don't know yet. It will be interesting to see here in summertime, when we have sunny, hot Australia back here, how these batteries perform then, how warm they actually get under normal load, under high loads. So this is something you need to consider as well, unless you have a room which is climate controlled. I guess not many of us have that. Okay, I think we can slowly transition into the parts which are not so good. And I want to start with the packaging of these boxes. Even they come in a double or even quadruple cardboard box. As you have seen twice now, all the bits and pieces inside this box here were loose. They were packed in plastic bags, and all these plastic bags were packed into a big plastic bag, which then was attached to one of the support beams inside. But all these parts got loose during transport and were banging around. So thankfully nothing got damaged or nothing was lost. But you know, any other form of protection for your parts inside, use a small cardboard box, put all the parts inside, and then put this cardboard box inside the steel container here. So they should be very safe then. So another negative aspect is from an electrical design perspective. Two things. One of them is the fuse, which is usually fine, but from the outside, once the lid is connected and everything, we've got no possibility to turn off the battery quickly. There's no mechanical switch. There's nothing you can turn off. You can isolate to disconnect your battery in case of a problem. The same on this one here. No switch, no breaker on the outside, just an internal fuse. The next point from an electrical safety perspective is the grounding. As you know, we've got this ground area down here, and we've got another one down here which is not actually exposed at the moment. With these ground options, we only ground or earth the front panel, not the whole case. See, this is all painted metal, and even we have these screws here going through the front panel into the case. This is not considered a ground or earth connection. I've already sent Seplos some photos of an improvement of that. It would include a Yeah, it would include such a short cable with 2 ring lugs, and then we properly can connect the front panel to the rest of the case. And the same is valid again for the lid. All painted material, the lid is painted, and you've got some screws going through the lid. But is this good, proper earth connection? I don't think so. What else do I have here? Ah, yeah, the terminals. Let's have a quick talk about the terminals here. So here in the 135 ampere hour do-it-yourself kit, these are the normal screw terminals where I can just use my self-made do-it-yourself cable, and I can connect this one here to my terminal and I'm good. But here on the big box, they are using something like, what does it say? Foodtronics. I think they are called Foodtronics. There are some writing on top of these terminals. Another Chinese companies where you have to buy these connectors from. And I'm not sure what kind of crimper you need to connect them to a cable. So these ones here are not very do-it-yourself friendly, because you either have to find these terminals online somewhere, including the crimping tool, or you have to buy them directly from Seplos as well, with a certain length of cable already connected. So to be honest, I like these terminals far more. Even these ones are not optimal because the metal contact here is exposed and you can touch both at the same time. And we can have up to 58 volt DC in this box here, and you could potentially get zapped. So neither of the terminals supplied to either of the boxes are actually optimal. Okay, I think we have to quickly talk about the negative side. What I don't like at all on this this system is that you have to operate everything through a computer. You have to connect your cable first, connect this to an adapter, connect this to your computer. You have to turn on your computer, you have to log in, you have to start the battery monitor software. And then if you want to change some parameters, you have to log in within this program as an administrator again to change one single parameter and then upload this parameter again to the BMS then. This is totally f***ing insane in these times. I don't know why they are not developing an app and a Bluetooth so you can just use your mobile phone and quickly log in, change a parameter or look up some parameters, and it is so much quicker. And what are you doing if you don't have a computer at home? I mean, some people have Macintosh computers, Apple, or using Linux at home, so they cannot use the Windows software, at least not easily. We want to talk about the BMS again, which I said is not a negative point anymore, but it is still a negative point, but also a positive point. So, as you know, the BMS has only 150 milliamp passive balancing at the moment. And with these high capacity cells, it is not really working, as we have seen from the tests I have done so far. And some people left comments under my videos saying they have these Mason battery packs here as well, and the 150 milliamp actually works for them, and the battery pack is always nice and balanced. But I think Seplos is very clever here, and they are hiding the actual problem by limiting the maximum state of charge of their batteries to 95%. So exactly at 95%, the BMS will stop charging. I think it is totally wrong for a BMS to control charging of battery unless one of the battery cells runs out of the specifications. So over 3.65, under 2.5, too hot, too cold. Anything else, the BMS should not be responsible for charging your batteries. This is part of your charger or the solar charge controller. Anyway, this is what Seplos does. They limiting the charging of these batteries by default to 95% state of charge and disconnect the charger. And 95% is still in the relative flat area of the curve, right? So we are not really in the knee of the curve and going uphill. Only seeing these higher voltages, we can also see a higher deviation of the battery cells. So charging only to 95% could actually hide your balance problem. Because in the flat area of the curve, all the cells are fairly close together and you don't see much need for balancing. So I guess as soon as these people are charging to 3.5, 3.55, 3.6 volts, they will also see that the balancer is not capable of keeping the battery under control. And at some stage, one of the battery cells will actually hit 3.65 volts and then the whole BMS turns off with an overvoltage disconnect. So I guess 150 milliamp passive balancing is not enough for these BMSs. It is not enough for these batteries. And hence I'm really glad I put these active balancer cables in here, and I can just connect the active balancer once or twice a year for maintenance purposes, let the battery top balance, and then it's good to go for another couple of months. And people have also asked if there's enough space in the front here for a NEEY Active Balancer. Absolutely. So you can have your wiring harness of the NEEY connected to the bus bar, and then have the NEEY somewhere sitting in between here. There's heaps of space. And then you can control the NEEY with the app from the outside world and can do a perfect balancing without opening the box. And you can set the parameters to your needs, so the NEEY actually kicks in every time you fully charge the battery. Perfect solution. But you have to fork out another $140, $150 for the NEEY. But 150 milliamp passive balancing is certainly on the list of my negative points. As well as this ridiculous film they want you to put on the underside of the lid. Even on the big one here, this plastic film. Until today, I don't know what it is for. And some have suggested, well, if something hits the box from above and dents the lid, and then the lid touches your bus bars, the plastic, this is a 0.1 millimeter plastic film on the underside. If something really hits the, let me show you something here. Look at this. I mean, if something hits your battery box, right, and dents the lid so far that it will touch the bus, you've got heaps of other problems then. And this tiny plastic film inside the lid will not protect you from a short. So I left this plastic film away for both batteries I have built here, and I think it's just a nuisance. It's just annoying people because the plastic doesn't really stick on the metal, and it will come off over time. And it looks like shit. And you built such a nice battery. So this design needs either to change, or they can leave the plastic completely away. What else do we have? Oh yeah, shipping costs. Shipping costs are too expensive, I think. People have told me they are quoted around $400 for shipping one of these boxes here. It's an empty box, no batteries inside, all the accessories, of course. But it's about 25 kilos, right? I mean, I'm paying only around $600 for 16 of these batteries here. And the batteries inside are about 4 times heavier than just the box. So I think Seplos should really improve the shipping costs here to make this box more attractive for their customers. Okay, well, and then the worst part, from what I can see so far with the BMS, is the communication side of things. I know this is supposed to be a benefit, a total pro, something positive about this BMS. The communication via the CAN bus to a lot of inverters from all kinds of different manufacturers. And for whatever reason, people want to connect their BMS, their battery, to the inverter. But let me show you this in a separate video. And here at the beginning it looks like I will not be able to get this battery connected to the other battery. Even the BMS inside is both a Seplos 100 amp and 150 amp. They are not able to communicate with each other. So there's no point, there's no way to connect these two batteries together. Hey, if you have more than one of these Seplos batteries, is it true that if one battery bank turns off because one of the cells has an over voltage situation, it turns off all the battery banks? This is information which someone left under one of my last videos, and I actually was quite shocked reading that. Because this would mean, in an off-grid situation, if one of my cells would be faulty or too hot or under temperature, and it turns off these battery banks, the BMS would communicate this error to all the other battery banks, and they would all shut down. And I would be in the dark. So if this is the case, it would speak for not connecting these batteries together anyway. because it clearly should turn off only this one battery bank and not all the other ones. So if you have more than one Seplos battery at home, please leave a comment down below with your experience of that. And someone else actually said, well, the benefit of connecting all these batteries together is that you change the parameters only in one battery, and with the link it communicates these changes in your settings to all the other BMSs as well, so you don't need to log into 5 or 6 different BMSs then and change this one parameter. So this is actually a very good point, even though how often do you change the parameters in your BMS once everything is set up? Well guys, I think so far this is all I have. Yeah, there's nothing else on my list. So considering all these positives and negatives I have found so far with this system here, I would give the Seplos MASON a 3 out of 5 frogs. Because as you know, nobody gets a 5 out of 5. But even the overall design and quality is pretty good. It also leaves room for improvement. So, and now the comprehensive question is, should you buy the Seplos MASON system? Either do it yourself or ready built? Well, let's do it the other way around. Leave your comments and thoughts about the Seplos MASON system down below. From everything you have seen so far, from all the information you gathered, do you think it's a good system? Or what does Seplos need to improve to make this product better? So let's give them some feedback, so they can improve the product as well as their service. So, and people will ask now, Andy, what is your final verdict about the Seplos MASON? So considering everything I have experienced so far and the positives and negatives we have just spoken about, I really like it. And I probably will buy more of these cases here to store more batteries in it. But there's also a lot of room for improvements. The Seplos system certainly has no major issues. And most of the pros and cons I have just spoken about are probably more like little compromises you have to consider. But overall, I think it's a good system and it's worth the money, except the shipping costs. They really need to come down. But please, if you think I have forgotten something, either positive or negative, or you want to share your own experience with the Seplos system, please leave a comment down under the video. I'm always keen to read them. Share your knowledge, because this is what we do here on the channel. I would say thank you very much for watching. Thanks for all your amazing support, guys. And until the next video, stay charged, stay safe, and thanks again for watching. See you then. Bye-bye.